Alright, welcome to my CASP preview demo. My name's DBigger. We're going to go through a couple slides here about security devices, and specifically this is a little bit of chapter out of the CASP book to cover the CASP exam objectives. So we're going to start off by talking about the placement of security devices. We want to put in what they call a packet filtering firewall. And it's packet filtering because it works at a layer 3. It looks at those packets coming in, looks at source and destination IP addresses, source and destination ports of where information is flowing. What we want to do is put this device, this firewall, in between our trusted and untrusted networks. The trusted network would be our network, what we have control of, our internal network, as you can see represented by the three computers here on the slide. We're going to protect those guys from the untrusted network, or the cloud, the infamous cloud out there, the internet, because, well, everybody uses the internet. There's no regulation really out there. There's no rules. Nobody really monitoring all that traffic. I know even the NSA says they can. There's nobody really controlling what you're doing out there. So we have to take it upon ourselves to put something in there to protect ourselves. So what we're going to do is put in this little firewall right here so we can place him between our trusted network and the untrusted network. And that's going to filter information coming into our network, and it's also going to filter traffic going out. So it's going to affect what we call ingress traffic, that traffic coming in from the untrusted networks, and our egress traffic, the traffic going outside. And that should help prevent some spillage, that proprietary information leaving our trusted internal network out to the internet. Now, another security device we need to talk about is a screened host firewall. This is what they call a bastion host element, and it gives us connectivity to the internet for our internal host. So what this does is, you can see this computer, he sits right here in line. So when people see our network, the only thing they're going to see is this bastion host, this screened firewall. So it's protecting the internal host. Well, it's protecting their identity, it's protecting their IP addresses, and they all have to flow through this one computer. So now we have to harden this one computer, really get him hardened down good to protect that trusted network still on the inside from that untrusted network on the outside. Also, we can put a packet filtering firewall in front of that if we wanted to, which just gives us another layer of defense. We want defense in depth. We'll talk about that a lot in the CASP exam, but we want multiple layers of defense in our network, and that just gives us that one more layer we can have. Another security device we need to talk about, or placement of security devices, would be a DMZ. This gives us a demilitarized zone, but what it does is it creates a public facing infrastructure or architecture that provides those external users, the people on the outside of our network, services that we can still control, but they're not necessarily inside our public, or excuse me, our private network. You can see this DMZ, we've got two firewalls now, and the computers in the middle, the ones with the little clouds on them there, are our public facing infrastructure or architecture, those public facing services that we're giving to the public, or the untrusted networks outside of our network. So we can put stuff like web servers in there, FTP servers, external DNS servers, things that we want to allow external users to see, but we're still protecting and providing internal trusted network support with our two firewalls. So everything in between those two firewalls is what we call a DMZ. Now with this design, this first firewall that coming from the cloud, the one closest to the cloud on the far right, would have more doors open. It's going to have more ports open, allowing more traffic to flow through. Then on the internal firewall, the one closest to the left there by our trusted networks, is going to have less ports open. It's going to close off some of those doors, those windows, those access areas to get into our network, because we want to harden that down as much as possible. Now this is one DMZ firewall design, and you can have a second design now. They've come up, the two technology just gets better and better and better. So now they have firewalls now that can have inbound, outbound ports on them, and they can also have the DMZ port on them, which that one DMZ is where we could connect a switch off out there and put those external public facing services out there, like our web servers, FTP, external DNS, whatever we might need to place out there. And then we have additional security devices that we need to talk about: a WAF, a web application firewall, and a VPN, a virtual private network. Now that WAF, that web application firewall, what that does is sits between a client and the web server, and it actually analyzes that layer 7 traffic all the way up there at the application layer. If you think about the OSI model, a little bit different than a packet filtering firewall that works down there at levels, layers 3 and 4, because it's looking at IP addresses and source and destination ports. This guy works at layer 7. That gives us that deep packet inspection. It can get way down in there, and it can look for threats like cross-site scripting threats, which is, one of the top 2 or 3 uh, threats out there according to OWASP right now. And it's also capable of detecting attack signatures as well as anomalous behavior. So what does that mean? Well, an attack signature is like your antivirus. We have specific signatures that it's looking for, those matching those bits up and saying, hey, this is bad, this is good, this is bad, this is good. And then it can look for that anomalous behavior, which is outside of the norm. It can analyze that traffic coming in, and as soon as it sees something that it's just not sitting real good with that firewall, it can say, hey, you look a little fishy, look a little shady here. I'm going to either block you, or I'm just going to notify some system admin, and they can take further action on that if they want to. And then finally, that VPN. VPN's been around for many, many years now, those virtual private networks. And what it does is provides remote access. Like trainers on the road or salesmen on the road, maybe they need to get back to the home office, get back to the headquarters, and tie into the corporate network for whatever reason, get to a file share. So that they fire up their VPN, they get back to the home office, and their computer thinks that they're actually sitting in the office now, and they're not in a hotel room somewhere or in a sales meeting somewhere, and they, trying to get their files back. So there's 3 implementations that the CASP concerns itself with, and that's one is in parallel with the firewall. The problem with that, it does not provide that centralized inspection point, because we're actually having 2 lanes of traffic coming in. So instead of having all the traffic flow through the firewall like on our packet inspection, we're going to have a VPN right beside it. So the VPN traffic is actually bypassing the firewall. We'd have to have something else in place. So now we don't have centralized, we got 2 different areas. We can also place it within inside the DMZ, which is going to give us that packet inspection, but it's going to have bandwidth restrictions because it's going to have to jump through more hoops to actually get to do what it needs to do. And we can integrate it with our VPN and the firewall. We could put those together, but that might lead to some scalability issues depending on how many VPN users you're going to have. If you start out with 10, 20, 30, it's probably not going to be a big deal. But if you climb to hundreds, 500, 1,000 external users that are tying back in through their VPN trying to get back to the home office, it could lead to scalability issues because you're going to need more hardware. You're going to need something faster, something bigger, something better, and your firewall is just not going to work. And if the VPN goes down and it's integrated with your firewall, well, guess what else comes down? There goes down your firewall. There goes away your protection from that untrusted network, and now we're have a vulnerability. So, well, that concludes my little demo here on security devices and security device placement. I hope you enjoyed it, and looking forward to doing some more demos for you and some real videos in the near future. Thanks again. Bye-bye.